Bernie is surging. That is the top story here. This is actually from thehill.com, and it shows that Bernie has taken the lead in some places and is extremely competitive in others. Senator Bernie Sanders is rising in the polls ahead of Thursday's pivotal debate in L.A., reestablishing his standing in the top tier. Well, he was always in the top tier, contrary to what the media was trying to sell. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll get to the main points. Blah, 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 blah. Sanders appears to be hitting his stride at just the right moment, surging past Warren and cutting into Biden's lead in new national surveys. Can I just make a point here? So what's amazing to me is the corporate media narrative has been, oh, Medicare for All has been the death nail of Elizabeth Warren's campaign. Medicare for All, health care, just destroyed her campaign. It took her from leading as the national frontrunner in some polls to now, she's free-falling. If that's the case, why is Bernie Sanders, who is unabashedly for Medicare for All, in surging while Elizabeth Warren is falling? Could it be that it went from I'm with Bernie to I'm kind of all over the place? I mean, we're going to get into the fact that now she's saying she's using the word choice, which is clearly a giant signal she was never serious about Medicare for All in the first place. But this narrative that Elizabeth Warren is suffering because she was for Medicare for All, she started going down when she started moonwalking for Medicare for All. I don't even understand. It's like the land of make-believe, CNN and the New York Times. When I was a kid, I used to love the WWF wrestling. I think I knew it was kind of fake after a while, but, it was like a excuse for me to watch a soap opera, but it was fake. I know it's fake now, but it was entertaining. I feel like the media is just pushing fake news. I'm not trying to sound like Trump, but, I mean, it's so obvious why she's sliding, and if Medicare for All is so unpopular, why is Bernie surging and Elizabeth Warren sliding? Bernie, Bernard Sanders, he is now taking the lead in New Hampshire in the Real Clear Politics average, and in Iowa just slightly behind Buttigieg. So let's take a look at New Hampshire. He's taken the lead. Definitely margin of error, but that's the average of all polls. You see Warren really, really sliding. Gabbard almost at 6%. You also see in Iowa Buttigieg up 3%, or actually less than 3%. Warren again in fourth place. Iowa, I take with a very big grain of salt because you look at a primary caucus polls in Iowa. Listen, a caucus is not a primary. People need to go. They need to invest time and energy into caucusing. Whereas a primary is more of a straight shot. You go, you pull the lever, you leave, right? And I also think Iowa, look at 2016, it's just much more unpredictable. Hillary Clinton was super up in Iowa for the most part. She ended up winning by less than 0.1%. The campaign did not panic or make dramatic changes in messaging or strategy in the fall after Sanders suffered a heart attack. Instead, the campaign banked on Sanders' unwavering focus on economic issues and wealth inequality. The campaign believes the strategy is paying off in the stretch run to Iowa, leading to rising poll numbers. Quote, "No other candidate has as durable a base as we do," said Nina Turner. Quote, "So now he has an energized base, and we're starting to see his crossover appeal. We could enumerate that too. With 4 million donations and hundreds of thousands of volunteers, we have the receipts and we have the moral clarity from a senator who has stood on the right side of justice for over 40 years. Nationally, Sanders is back in the game, surpassing Warren after trailing her by double digits. The latest NPR PBS Marist National Survey released Sunday found Biden with the support of 24% of respondents, Sanders at 22%, and Warren at 17%. So you get the point. Honestly, right now, I think, and I said this yesterday, I think if the Iowa caucus were held today, it's really a 50-50 between Bernie and Pete Buttigieg. I think Joe Biden's campaign has basically waved the white flag already in Iowa. I think Elizabeth Warren, unless there is some magical moment she has in this debate, unless she suddenly comes out in January before the Iowa caucus and, quits faking it and just says, listen, I'm a capitalist I'm a capitalist warrior who wants to save capitalism, because she's trying to straddle the line and pretend to be a super progressive when she's not. I think Elizabeth Warren, her fatal mistake was having no conviction. And it shows in the numbers. The corporate media keeps talking about Elizabeth Warren's campaign is the most structured and well-organized campaign in Iowa. I mean, I don't really know. First of all, Bernie Sanders has way more volunteers than any other candidate, but I don't really know what that structure is going to do if nobody really knows what it stands for. Iowa voters are smart. Iowa voters take this seriously, and Iowa voters have basically met and heard from 3 or 4 Elizabeth Warrens, which we're going to get to in a little bit, because now she's starting with the choice talk. With Bernie, I think that he has had kind of, since 2016, an odds and evens kind of sequence. What I mean by that, in the debates, he's been fire in one debate and ice in the next debate. After his heart attack, he came out with fire breathing out. He was strong. He went after Biden multiple times. The next debate, not as much. A lot of people don't like when I criticize that, but it's a pattern. But the only way that Bernie Sanders could take it and elevate himself from right now, which right now, again, 50-50 in Iowa, I think. New Hampshire, if it were held today, I think Bernie would win. Iowa, it's just a 50-50. I mean, there's really no firm way to know whether it would be Bernie or Buttigieg. I don't think it's going to be Biden. I don't think it's going to be Warren. But I think Bernie has a major opportunity, maybe one of the most important debates that he's ever had, because right now he's kind of like, sorry if I'm mentioning something to you that you haven't seen it. He's kind of like Rocky after losing the first round. Rocky 1, he comes out of nowhere and he loses to Apollo Creed. In that second Rocky, he has the chance to actually take him out. And I think Bernie has an opportunity this Thursday to really, really surge into first place. And the way to do that is to not go after Pete Buttigieg, let other people go after Pete Buttigieg. I'm going to tell you some things today that I hope other people mention. He needs to go after Joe Biden, and he needs to go after Joe Biden on a lot more than Iraq. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty to discuss with Iraq. The Daily Beast, of all places, had a story that came out recently that was really good. But the bottom line is, Joe Biden right now is Bernie Sanders' biggest obstacle to winning, and there is so much to take him down on, and there is such a path to picking off, I would guess, 2 to 3% of Joe Biden's voters who are only making $50,000 or less and only have high school degrees. And the way to do that is to expose the fact, not only is this man not for unions, not only is this man not for working people, he has actively not just voted for things that decimated those, but he has actively pushed for policies that have decimated those. And Bernie Sanders, frankly, has not done a great job of exposing that during these debates. He mentioned Joe Biden in terms of, oh, well, my good friend Joe here voted for the NAFTA, voted for the TPP. And I get it. He only has 40 seconds and whatever. But Bernie Sanders needs to explain in a very, very, in a soundbite. And I know that's against kind of what he stands for. He has to be able to communicate to the audience. Donald Trump is a danger in many different ways, but Joe Biden is not going to help close the income gap. Joe Biden is not going to help you get off that second job into one job. Joe Biden is not going to help you get expanded health care. Joe Biden is not going to improve your wallet, because Joe Biden and his wing of the Democratic Party are in large part emboldening Donald Trump. He needs to go aggressively. He needs to mention, this was unbelievable to me. Barely anyone's mentioned it. This is Joe Biden at a fundraiser last week. Mr. Biden noted the elevated financial status of the supporters in the room several times. At one point, he repeated what he said at other fundraisers. Quote, By the way, if you elect me, most of you are not going to get a tax cut. Applause followed. He said that as longtime Delaware senator, he knew the state's wealthy DuPont family didn't need his help. And by the way, I never demonized them. I've never run one of these campaigns about these super populist campaigns. Well, here's what Joe Biden is not saying, and he's letting the press in. But what Joe Biden, and I think Bernie Sanders needs to talk about this, it's not only whether you give them tax cuts or you don't give them tax cuts. It's about what are you doing other than taxes. Just because you might not give them a massive tax cut like Trump doesn't mean you're actually evening the playing field. You're still, as president, going to be giving bankers subsidies. You're still, as president, going to be giving healthcare companies subsidies. You're still, as president, going to be giving fossil fuel companies subsidies. Silicon Valley gets subsidies. Joe Biden is not going to change that. Joe Biden, as president, you think his Department of Justice, you think his EPA is going to regulate DuPonts of the world? By the way, people suddenly think that the EPA went rogue because of Trump. The EPA has been rogue way earlier than Trump. Maybe it's worse now. But the corporations regulate the regulating bodies. This has been happening under Joe Biden's Democratic Party, under Pete Buttigieg's Democratic Party. So, in their world, Joe Biden thinks he's saying something populist or progressive by saying, you're not going to get a tax cut from me. You want to know why they're laughing? You want to know why they're applauding? Because they don't care if they get a tax cut from Joe Biden, because they know they're still going to get the deregulation. They're still going to get the subsidies. There's not going to be attorney generals of the United States under Joe Biden going after these criminal bankers, just like they didn't go after him under President Obama. They're still going to be able to have all the leverage, the corporate CEOs at his fundraisers and Mayor Pete's, in crushing the unions, because Joe Biden's not a real union man. Just read about the Democratic Party's shift to the right over the last 30 years. They don't give a damn about the labor unions. It's like black people. They come to visit you during the primaries, during the election. They suddenly care about black issues. They come to the churches. They come to the labor halls. And then once elected, who the hell are you? Call my secretary. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.